Welcome, loyal members. If you're watching this, then it means that as a member of my channel, this is a little extra I've decided to throw in. These are going to be a series of month-by-month updates on the Dominion War as it will happen 253 years in the future. And this month, the war begins. I'm Venom Geek Media, and this is the Dominion War. Right, so over the past year, quite a bit has happened in the Alpha Quadrant. There was the occupation of Cardassia by the Klingon Empire, and they got driven out around about August, and they were driven out by a Dominion task force, which was around about 300 ships. Since then, numerous Dominion supply convoys have come through the wormhole to fortify Cardassia. In total, about 800 ships. As can be seen on the map, each Dominion fleet group represents about 100 ships, give or take. While this is going on, Starfleet is growing incredibly uneasy and is pretty confident that Dominion are at some point going to undertake hostile action. Now, Benjamin Sisko, we all know, seizes the initiative and puts down a minefield, preventing any more Dominion ships coming through the wormhole. This obviously throws a spanner in the works of the Dominion, who were actually planning on bringing a lot more ships through. 800 ships, combined with the about 1,200 that the Cardassians have, while a lot, is not really enough to take over the Federation, but it's all they've got right now, so they're going to have to make do. But they do stand in far better stead than the Federation, who in total only have a handful, about half a dozen fleet groups in total. So, however, the Federation do have a lot of ships in reserve, and the Dominion is highly aware of this. They know that, unlike them, where the Cardassians are currently maxed out, if they want any more ships, they're going to have to build them. And so the Dominion know that they have to, if they're going to win this war, they're going to have to win it quickly. They don't have many numbers, and they know that as time goes on, the Federation is going to gear up and become far more effective. So if they want to win, they need to win early and quickly. And so, the Dominion implements its invasion plan. And so, on January 9th, the war begins. The Dominion launch an attack against Deep Space Nine. This is of course critical to their war plans, and the Federation know this. Since most of the Dominion fleet is concentrated in retaking Deep Space Nine, that frees up enough of a gap for them to raid the Taurus shipyards, which they hope will set back Dominion production, although that proves not to be the case. Deep Space Nine is pretty quickly retaken and overrun, and the Dominion proceed with the first phase of their full invasion plan. As previously mentioned, the Dominion know that they have to beat the Federation quickly if they want any chance of winning the war, certainly with what they already have to hand. Now, they are still planning to clear the minefield, but it would be nice to achieve an early victory, and so they institute a very bold plan of maneuver warfare. There's plenty of space and not many Federation fleets. So using their superior numbers, remember, the Dominion have 20 fleet groups, they plan to surround the Federation, really in two fronts. You have the McAllister front, around the top of the which is around the top of the McAllister Nebula, and in that there are 4 Dominion fleets facing off against a single Federation fleet. Now they're going to drive it back, and hopefully the second Cardassian fleet, which can be seen underneath, is going to cut across underneath the McAllister Nebula and cut off the Federation fleet at Cerebus, in the frontier region between the McAllister Nebula and the Badlands, where most of the Cardassian border war took place. A lot of mobility is happening too. The Cardassian Sixth Order is driving straight at the Federation fleet there and driving them back. The main thing is to keep their centre immobilized and unable to support their flanks, which are really where the main action is taking place. On the outer front, there's a lot more space and a lot more ships going on. You have 2 fleets One Federation and the Klingon Expeditionary Force. The Klingons aren't necessarily in a great place, though they do have some reserve fleets. They suffered a lot due to attrition, and subsequent to that, with the Dominion Task Force, really gave them quite a bloody nose, so they're far from up to full strength. The fleets from Chintoka and Kelvas, after sweeping through Bajor and retaking Deep Space Nine, will come around down to Solaria, one of the main Federation starbases, with cooperation of the other half of the fleet group, which are sweeping around via Tarzas and Nami, and again up to Solaria, and their plan is to cut off the Klingon Federation fleets and surround them completely. The Dominion hope that this will actually bring about an early Federation surrender, and it can end the war very quickly, and they can go back to a period of peace where they can still start bringing through ships from the wormhole, preparing for a full invasion of the Alpha Quadrant. Unfortunately, this isn't what happens. The Federation are acutely aware that they are outnumbered, and so institute a general retreat. This is obviously very frustrating for the Dominion that were really hoping to knock out, well, you could knock out a total of 4 fleet groups in the early phases of the war, which, all told, would have made a significant difference, certainly from the Dominion perspective. It definitely would have freed up space, but it proved unsuccessful, and the Federation fleets were able to successfully escape and evade the Dominion Cardassian fleets. The fleet in the north falls back to Izar. Now, they do concede Zindi, Kabu, and Cerebus, and Actium to the Dominion. These are 3 major star bases, and were originally planned to be part of the Federation's bulwark against any future war with the Cardassian Union, but these have just been completely overrun, and in subsequent months will be besieged, and 2 of them will fall. However, the other 3 fleet groups at Zychin, Arcturus Prime, and Nibia are now moving to support, and suddenly there isn't quite so much open space as there once was. In the central front, the Federation fleet is driven back to Persephone with heavy casualties, and further down to the south, the Klingon and Federation fleet fall back to Aurolio Prime and Zartak, evading capture by the large Dominion fleet group, but they are still heavily outnumbered. And meanwhile, on the Klingon front, 2 Klingon fleet groups have moved to Kritassa Prime and Regulus. And so that brings us to the end of the month. The Dominion has swept across the Federation border territories and has taken huge swaths of space. However, they are going to quickly find themselves stretched thin. However, they have failed in their primary objective, which was the destruction of the Federation fleets. They're still out there, and they know that more Federation fleets are on their way. And that brings us to the end of the first month of the Dominion War.